Hello and welcome to Painting Panzers. My name's Christian and today we're going to be taking a look at a hybrid Sherman Firefly from Flames of War. Now unfortunately this particular vehicle is now out of production, but they do offer plastic kits, so you might be able to make your own little hybrid Sherman if you get the right kits. It might cost you a little bit extra money, but it would definitely be worth it because these are rare beasts on the wargaming table. But enough of all of that, let's get into painting this Sherman and see how it all comes together. Now, as I said, this vehicle isn't available at the moment, unless you're very lucky and you find it on eBay or one of the Facebook Marketplace swap sort of groups. But you can get the Flames of War plastic kits. So you could get a Sherman, a couple of different Sherman kits, and you will be able to make your own little hybrid Firefly. It might involve a little bit of work, but it will probably be worth it. Actually, I know it'll be worth it because they'll be very rare on the table, especially if they don't produce any more of these in the future. So it's worth considering if you want to make this, but the plastic kits are available if you just want a generic Firefly. Now the first thing I'm going to do is get the airbrush ready, and then I'm going to mix dark green, olive drab and flat yellow at a 5:2:2 ratio, which is going to give us that SCC 15, which is the British tank paint colour for the late war sort of Normandy onwards scheme. So that's that olive drab with a hint of green in it. I'm also going to be making sure that I've given my vehicle a prime in black, so I use TS14 from Tamiya, and I'm thinning the paints with the Tamiya thinners as well, and I'm setting the compressor up to 15 psi or 1 bar for this one whilst I'm using my compressor, and you should get a nice lovely coat. And I give it a nice thin coat, making sure some of that black's still coming through, and then I come over it again using the exact same mixture, but this time I add a little bit more yellow. So I'll go 5 parts dark green, 2 parts olive drab, and then 3 parts flat yellow, and you can see already that yellow is starting to come up on the vehicle. And I'm using what I call the panel highlighting technique, so I'm airbrushing in the inner part of each panel, and that's just going to make them stand out a little bit more. Now I'm moving on, I'm going to be adding some more yellow, so you can keep doing this until you've got a nice bright colour. So I'm going to be going 5 parts dark green, 2 parts olive drab, and then 4 parts flat yellow, and you can see that that's starting to brighten up nicely. As I said, you can go with another coat if you want to, and I'm just airbrushing in the middle. Once that's done, you want to give your model a semi-gloss varnish from Tamiya, and then you can use your wash. So I'm using a pin wash. It's the Tamiya panel wash set, and it's dark brown, which is great for green vehicles. It already comes with a nice little pointy brush on there, and you can see that with that enamel wash and that semi-gloss varnish, it's just running nicely. So you can just touch an area and you'll see that wash run. You don't want to coat it in, it's just going to make it a lot harder to clean up, except I do go mental on the tracks. And then once you've given it probably about 10 to 15 minutes, the Tamiya panel washes really don't take long at all. Just get a cotton bud, dab it in some enamel odorless thinners. I use MIG for this one, and then I just go crazy. So you want to dry pretty much that cotton bud to the touch. It just has a little tiny bit of that thinners on there, and then you can go around and clean it all up. Now the whole point of this is not to make sure that you're not going to remove the wash, you're just tidying up where it spills, because this enamel wash always spills. And then yeah. So the decals I'm using today are from Dice of War. I have got a video out on that already. I'll leave a link to that in the description. But the decal sheet is absolutely lovely, and I'd highly recommend grabbing some. They do British and German currently, but the range is going to increase. Now for me, I like to cut my decals off using scissors. Some people use a Stanley knife. It really doesn't matter. Once you've cut them to shape, you want to make sure they're pretty much exactly to shape. I let them soak in water for a very short amount of time. I've sped this up, but it's probably about 30 seconds. And then, probably against people's good judgment, remove it on my finger and then apply it on to the area in which it needs to go. And then try and use the tip of my brush just to remove some of the excess water, which you saw removing there. I'm also adding the bridging disc as well at the bottom here, and following that same principle. I'm only adding these on flat surfaces, so they shouldn't be too hard to apply. When you start going over Zimmerer and stuff like that, or uneven surfaces, then yeah, you want to give it a bit of time. I do have videos on how to do that as well, which I'll also leave a link to that in the video description, as well as the pop-up that's coming up on the top right of your screen now. Now I'm applying micro sol to these decals, and that's just going to help them adhere to that panel a little bit better. And once you've applied that, you don't want to put too much on there, just a little bit. Give it a good 10-15 minutes and then come along and remove the excess. Once you're happy and the excess is removed, give it a semi-gloss varnish. That's going to seal that deco, and it's also going to hide the film if applied correctly. Now for the metal items on this Sherman, I'm going to be using black grey. You can go silver if you really want to, but I find that silver's pretty unrealistic. I feel like a lot of people don't do this method because they think that silver's the way to go, and until you've done this method you probably go against it. But I recommend giving it a go and then seeing if you like the dark grey method opposed to like the silver or dark silver. So flat earth is now what I'm going to be using for my wood. So this Sherman, this hybrid Sherman, has some tools and storage, and well, not so much storage but tools, so just make sure you're capturing all. He's got a shovel here, and I believe he had an axe or something else. Now for the tracks, I'm going to be using black for this one. I pretty much say in all of my videos, all of my tank videos, the tracks get painted black, and I know a lot of people probably scratch their head at this, especially if you're new and you don't know what I do next. But yeah, I recommend painting them black, and if you've primed your model in with a black primer, then that painting them black shouldn't be too difficult. And whilst those tracks are drying, I'm going to use my Nort Oil and Lathmium Medium, or Technical Medium from Warhammer, thinned at a 1:1 ratio, so I just do it within the bottle itself. You get 2 mixtures out of it. Apply that on, and whilst that's drying, I'm now going to make the cover for the actual barrel of the 17 pounder. So I'm going to be using Deck Tan, and it is a wavy sort of pattern. It's not, there's no precision to it. This was just applied in field, I believe. So just, you can be rough. If you make a little wave a little bit too big or a little bit too small, do not panic. Just go with it. Trust me, it looks good regardless. You'll see that one of my sides, I think one of the waves looks very sad and very low, but you know what, it looks good. You got to remember these are just being slapped on with a brush, so just make it look as such. So once you've done, you should have something that looks like that, and then you can go over it with white grey or white. I like white grey. I found from Vallejo that it runs a little bit better than the other whites that I've got, hence why I'm always using white grey. Now you can see that I've sort of combined 2 waves there by accident, but I'm just going to leave it. I'm not even going to try and fix it up because I've already explained why. But yeah, you know what I mean. So it looks just as good. I mean, look at that. It's come out absolutely beautifully. I love a firefly with that marking on there. Right, with all of that done, your wash is pretty much dried, so you can go with black grey and basalt grey at a 1:1 ratio, and this is going to help us to layer the metal items. So I'm pretty much repainting them all, but just leaving a little bit of that original colour in the recesses. And then for the highlight, I'm going to go over it with basalt grey. So you can see then I'm just focusing on the outer edge of the shovel there, and I'll focus on the outer edges here of the axe as well. And just scratch it on. I'm using a Rosemary & Co. Kolinsky Sable size 0 brush, and I'm only adding a little bit to the tip of my brush in order for me just to be able to scratch on the details that I need. So repeating the same process with the wood, we're using flat earth and orange brown, and again just scratching on this detail, trying to simulate some sort of wood grains. And then I'm moving on to orange brown, and I'm just adding in little details, again doing exactly what I did with the previous step, just reducing the amount that I'm putting on. Now get a battered old brush, but one that's relatively big, get some burnt umber, dry brush the hell out of the tracks, and once majority of the paint's off, from where you've dry brushed the track, so you don't want much on the tracks anyway, but when you've got like almost nothing left, also give the sides a good go around the back, and that's going to give you a nice dusty brown color, and it's really going to make the vehicle look a little bit more weathered on the bottom there. I think it actually looks really good, and those tracks really do come to life. Now you can add a little bit of silver if you want to, but I'm not going to bother because I'm adding some pigment. So I've got the Dust and Dirt pigment set from Vallejo, but I only really use one, and it's more of the like muddy or dried mud color. My technique is very different to what other people do, I believe, at least anyway. I apply the hell out of this pigment, and then I get my flat clear spray from Tamiya and I give it a coat. Now when you give it a coat, so it's going to look like that before you give it a coat. When you give it a coat, you'll notice the majority of it dries up. You can see that we've got a fresh tank again, but some of it will stay applied, and then you'll start to see that the color of the dirt will just start to glaze the actual vehicle with that spray. So keep repeating it, that process of applying the pigment and spraying until you're happy, and you end up with something similar to this. Now, what I didn't show you at the end of that video was the fact that the pigment dried a little bit too bright and a little bit too like beige. So I went over the pigment with burnt umber to give you this muddy effect that you can see now. And I'm really happy with how it's come out. This is a very quick video on how you can paint a Flames of War Sherman or British tank without having to worry about chipping and everything else. So I tried to make this process as quick as possible. Obviously the airbrushing combinations of paints and such does take a long time, but it is worth it for a really authentic looking British tank colour. So let me know in the comment section if you've enjoyed this quick Flames of War British tank painting tutorial. I must say a huge thank you to Adam for sending me out that decal sheet. It's a really lovely decal sheet, so if you're in the market for some new British or German decals for your Flames of War vehicles, really do consider Dice of War for those decals. And keep an eye on them because I believe more are coming out in the future. Well, I know they are. I must also thank my Patreons and YouTube channel members. As always, you guys are bloody awesome, and a special mention goes out to those Panzer Aces. So that's Patrick, Oscar, James, Panzer Jim, Colin, Lack of Foresight Gaming, Mike, Mikey, Eric, Rothgar, and Jonathan. You guys are all awesome. I truly appreciate you guys being those Panzer Aces. My God, we are getting a lot of those Panzer Aces now, and a lot of new members. If you want to join their ranks, you can join for as little as $1 a month and you get access to a few perks, and it would really make my day if you did. Alright guys, I'm going to leave it here. Don't forget to let me know what Flames of War vehicle you want to see next, and until then I will catch you at the next one.